I felt like I needed to share this for those of you who like history. It might just be new to me, but I thought it was very interesting. It's written by Stringfellow Barr, who was president of St. John's College in Annapolis, blah, 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 president of Foundation for World Government, college professor of humanities at Rutgers, blah, 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 wrote tons of books. Anyway, this is from 34, and here's the guy. I just happened upon this in the library and started reading it, and it was eye-opening to me, and I thought it was so timely. I hope outside's going to do because it's pretty. When Western man hears the word Jerusalem, he's likely to think of religion. When he hears the word Athens, he's likely to think of art, literature, and philosophy. When he hears the word Rome, he thinks of law. And since no civilization has flourished without law, the imagination of Western man is haunted by the Roman Empire. Charlemagne chose to be crowned emperor of the Holy Roman Empire. Dante wrote his treatise De Monarchia, extolling the empire. Erasmus strove to write Ciceronian Latin, and the new absolute monarchies of Western Europe used Roman law as a weapon against feudal nobles. Successive generations of Europeans, both those in Europe and those in colonial empires that Europe has conquered beyond the seas, have consulted Roman experience, although they have not always asked the same questions of the oracle we call the Roman Empire. I presume that the choice of questions has been dictated by the special experience and special problems of each generation, by its special anxieties, its special anguish, as each generation pursued its pilgrimage through time and space and history. I presume further, I doubt that any other nation or national contingent of the generation now on pilgrimage has so urgent a need to consult the Roman Empire as we have today. We, the people of the United States, we are the richest nation in man's recorded history. We are the most heavily armed. And we proclaim ourselves the leaders of the non-communist world. And we are presently lighting a second land war in Asia for the professed purpose of protecting people from communism and of convincing communist states that they cannot successfully aid communist-led revolts in non-communist countries. The need to consult history is, however, one thing. The desire to do it's quite another. And we Americans don't like history, for history is strewn with failures, and we intend to succeed. It was a self-made shrewd and successful American who publicly declared that history is bunk. And while not all Americans agreed, the remark must have struck a responsive chord in the hearts of this self-made, shrewd, and successful nation. We are skeptical of the experience Thucydides was talking about when he wrote, "Those inquirers who desire an exact knowledge of the past as an aid to the interpretation of the future, which in the course of human things must resemble if it does not reflect it." True, we demand experience in individuals, as our want-ads daily testify, but we are less interested in the experience of whole societies, especially those which significantly failed. Many of us read histories of our own country not merely because such histories are our own, but because they are the annals of success. True, our history buffs like to read histories of the Civil War and experience Thucydidean tragic an experience of Thalissidean tragic dimensions. But such histories need effect no purgation of the buff, since the right side won, and its success led to further sensationalized successes. When Senator Fulbright, therefore, makes a Thalissidean remark about the arrogance of power, he doesn't make us thoughtful, he makes us angry. Boy, that's what happens. And similar comments by others seem to have produced a similar effect. In short, when we consult history, we want to find what our senior citizens once found as children in the biographies of Horatio Alger: virtue and its just reward, success, not what, can never say his name, Thalicides did, but a mixture of virtue and vice. The power that blinds, increasing hybris, catastrophe, and humiliation that can sometimes heal the blind. Sorry, that didn't seem to come out right. So in other words, we want our history to show seniors like Horatio Alger and all his virtue. And we just want the hyperbole, not the real stuff. Even if we Americans are prepared to study the past from the point of view of Thalicides, even if we could heed Senator Fulbright's warning without a defensive burst of anger, there would still remain an obstacle to our examining the Roman Empire as another warning of the same kind. This obstacle is the growing tendency of today to rule out the fruitful use of analogy when men try to think. If such men draw analogies between Rome's experience and Washington's, we tell them impatiently, or explain to them with deadly patience, that of course they are similar. Similarities between Imperial Rome and the United States, just as there were between the ancient Roman Empire and the modern British Empire, but that there are also important differences. Our patronizing patience makes me ill. Is based on the unsophisticated assumption that analogy and identity are the same thing. The founding fathers made no such error. They were under no such illusion that Rome and Philadelphia were the same city, but they knew that the Roman Republic faced problems that they, in another hemisphere and in another time, also faced. So they analogized. The history of the Republic the founding fathers fathered has vindicated their prescient faith in analogy. Ought we not to emulate their prescience before it's too late? When men quote the well-worn adage that the only lesson history teaches is that history teaches nothing, ought we not to recall another adage? That they who know no history are doomed to repeat its errors? The events of the past 2 decades urge us to review once more the American experience in light of what the Romans did and what happened to them. And first of all, we might compare their early history with our own to see whether, at somewhat similar experience, formed a somewhat similar political character. Yeah, it's very sobering, and this is part 1. I'm going to do part 2 on another video. Or I'm going to keep going. I'll do 2 on 1. So chapter 2. The Romans, according to their own legends, believe their city was founded by Romulus, whose twin brother Remus founded a city nearby. Romulus welcomed highwaymen and refugees to his new city. These brothers had been exposed as babies and adopted by a she-wolf who suckled them. On the other hand, the Latin word for she-wolf, lupa, also means prostitute. So they may have been suckled by a prostitute, if not indeed born by one. Greeks, however, possessed a quite different legend that may have come from Magna Graecia. the fringe of Greek colonies that stretched from the nearby Bay of Naples around the southern coast of Italy as far as Taranto. This other legend related that after the Achaeans sacked Troy, a God-fearing Trojan named Aeneas, son of the goddess Aphrodite by a mortal man, wandered into Italy. Here his son, or perhaps his grandson, founded Rome. This Greek legend would be the basis for Virgil's epic, written for Rome's first emperor more than 1,000 years after the fall of Troy. In Virgil's poem, Aeneas is pictured as a courteous, courageous, strong-willed, prudent, sometimes humorless warrior, a widower able to take time out for a tour d'affaires with Dido, a rich and beautiful widow who ruled Carthage, but unable to persuade her when he deserted her, that it was only because God told him to. He had important business to do. Jove had ordered him to lead his fellow refugees to Italy and there to found Rome. Dido, who was less God-fearing than Aeneas, never believed this story and committed suicide. According to Virgil, there had been a profound difference between them. She had considered herself practically Aeneas' wife, but he saw the matter otherwise. It's instructive that though his mother, the goddess of love, had occasionally appeared to him, she avoided conversation with him. So did Dido. When Aeneas, on his one visit to Hades, met her ghost there and tried to explain his dissertation, she didn't even bother to answer but turned away. He wept and continued to carry out the mission Jove had assigned him. It was a difficult mission, and Virgil pictures him best in two traits, labor and cura, which may be freely translated as work and worry. And indeed, he was a hard-working, worried, God-fearing man, but he knew his duty and not too joyously did it. So he was also a successful man, and the city he founded conquered an empire that measured either by population or square miles, recorded the biggest success story in European history to date. Is there any historical basis for these legends? According to the Romans, the city was founded in 753 BC, and there is every reason for assuming that that date is now. 2 hungry babies would be glad to drink wolf's milk. This diet might well embolden Romulus to welcome brigands and outlaws to settle in the city he founded. But Troy fell in 1296, and if Aeneas left the city in flames and was destined to found Rome 540 years later, Dido had reason to believe he was less pressed for time than he claimed he was. Nevertheless, both legends enjoyed wide currency at Rome. If they don't tell us much about her founding, they tell us a great deal about the way generations of Romans viewed the origins of their republic. The she-wolf defended generation after generation the many sons she adopted. Those who attacked her and her litter she defeated and admitted to her litter as allies of the Roman Republic, committed to fight for her whenever summoned and never to make treaties with third parties without her consent. By these simple but practical devices, the Republic, over a period of 533 years of almost ceaseless warfare, slowly extended the Roman alliance over the whole of Italy, Sicily, Sardinia, and Corsica. To accomplish the feat, Rome had to drive out of Sicily what had been the only great power in Western Mediterranean, the commercial and maritime Republic of Carthage, thus liberating the Greek cities of Sicily and Magna Graecia from their most ancient foe. Then she protected these Western Greeks from the hill tribes of the hinterland. There is no evidence that she planned in advance this wide expansion of her power. She expanded merely by pacifying her neighbor city, that is, by forcing it to lay down its arms and to accept the one-sided alliance that alone could bring to a neighbor of Rome's a guarantee against immediate destruction. as well as a guarantee of future protection. And so the wolf pack grew. Rome showed no interest in crossing the Adriatic. She satisfied her land hunger, which was considerable, by demanding land from her defeated opponents in Italy. And on this land, she frequently settled military colonists to police the growing alliance. But 4 separate times the Greek city of Tarentum, before it had been forced into the Roman alliance, called into Italy Greek adventurers with mercenary armies, 3 times to help Tarentum against marauding hill tribes, and the 4th time against Rome. This last intervention by the Hellenistic world, led by King Pyrrhus of Epirus, demonstrated what many others would prove later, that Greek generals as well as Carthaginian generals understood the art of war as none of Rome's generals had to date. But that professional mercenary soldiers could not stand up to the citizen armies of Rome's farmer soldiers, to the discipline and tenacity of these armies, or to the steadily growing reserve manpower on which Rome could call. Hence, the brilliant victories of Pyrrhus remained Pyrrhic victories. Rome habitually lost the first battle and won the war. War, Thucydides once declared, is a rough schoolmaster, and no Greek state, not even Sparta, was ever so thoroughly schooled by war as Rome. Like Sparta, Rome never followed through on an early flirtation with art and literature, though she learned literature later when she conquered Greece. What she learned from war was perhaps expressed by the Roman poet Lucilius. Force is life, you see. All we do, force forces us to do. That's 2 chapters. I'll do 3 and 4 in a minute. Thanks.